Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, and we are back with our long-standing Thursday guest, Jonathan Twombly. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Michael. Thanks for your patience over the last few weeks. I've had all this travel and other things going on, so I haven't been able to meet with you for a while, but it's good to be back.
That's totally okay. Enjoying the little last respite of summer, making memories, all of that stuff. So it is all good. But I wanted you to know you were missed. Lots of our viewers were like, "Hey, where's Jonathan?" I'm like, "Dude's on vacation. Let him have a break." So you are missed by the channel. So thank you very much.
Well, I'm glad to be back. Thank you.
Awesome.
It's good to know people are actually paying attention. It's somebody other than me and you watching this video.
Yeah, there's about 1,000 people at least per video. So that's pretty awesome. So let's talk about the summer of 2022. And I want to do this because, we watch the market all the time. But part of what we're doing is we're trying to understand what the future holds so we can make investments now. So I just want to see where your head's at with kind of 8 questions, if you don't mind. You ready?
And I'll let the audience know I don't know what the questions are.
No,
so,
not at all. I like springing them on you. You and my experts just one at a time. So here we go. So again,
guessing game. Okay.
That's a guessing game prediction. I don't want anybody to think this is financial advice or anything.
Okay.
So here's the first one. This is about residential. So as of when I built this slide, we had 1.32 million homes available across the country. 3 million is a normal market. I'm curious what you think we'll have by next summer. Will we be under 2 million still? Somewhere between 2 and 3 million, or over 3 million? What do you think? What's your gut?
I don't see this changing. I think this is okay, because I don't think the dynamics that are driving the 1.32 million number right now are going to change that rapidly, because it would have done a lot more construction. And I think you're the expert in single family. I just follow it kind of casually, but
sure.
And personally, as like a buyer, of a home, but it's I think one of the big factors behind this number is that people who sell don't have anywhere to go. Right?
Yeah,
so
you're right.
They're not putting their homes on the market, and I don't really see that that changing. So not that fast anyway.
Okay. Very cool. That's awesome. This is exactly what I want. And I love the logic. I think that makes perfect sense. How about 30-year money? 30-year money as of the recording was 3.03. It was re-verified yesterday with the Mortgage Brokers Association, the same number. So what do you think next summer? Are we still under 4? We somewhere between 4 and 5, or do you think we get a jump to over 5% in about a year?
Well, I definitely eliminate C. I don't think it's going to that fast.
Agree.
And I could, you don't have, I guess I'll pick B by default. I think it's going to be somewhere around 4.
Okay.
I think it'll tick up a little bit, but it's not going to tick up, dramatically. But with the Fed, if the Fed really does taper purchases of, securities and stuff as it's talking about, I think that's going to, cause interest rates to start drifting up a bit.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw it because it just came out today. The ECB is actually starting to taper now. They just announced, and their inflation is only at 3%. And I think we're substantially higher than that. It's interesting. Since I created this slide, there's been a lot of people reaching out to me that they're saying, Michael, you're going the wrong way. There's a lot of people that want this to be, under 2%. A lot of people think that 30-year could go under 2%. I've never asked that question. You think there's any chance that 30-year could go under 2%?
What is the logic of that? Like that, is it the idea? I mean, I guess I could posit a scenario in which like this Delta virus variant gets really out of control and we go back into lockdowns, and then the Fed feels like it has to go and lower interest rates more again. I suppose that's a possibility, but I kind of feel like, even in the blue states, they're going to bend over backwards not to lock down again.
Yeah.
Of it, and it's going to, I don't know. I mean, that could also cause the variant to grow further, but I don't see it. I don't see it. Yeah. I think the only way I see we get to 2%, and this again is just a total tangent, is I think we go from 3 to north of 4. The Fed raises rates into the beginning of a recession. Then we get into a deep, dark recession, and they go, "Oh my God, we got to go the other way." Right. I mean, I could see that happening too. I mean, as a plausible scenario.
Right. Yeah. It's just because that's it. When somebody asks me, I'm like, because some people are like, hey, we're going to go from 3 right to 2. And I'm like, I just don't see it.
Yeah.
We have all this inflation. We've got 11 million job openings, eight points. I mean, nothing tells me we're going backwards in the economy. So
Yeah.
maybe we go forward and then backwards. That's the only way I see 2%.
But I think for the Fed to cause a recession, you would have to have interest rate hikes of the kind that we saw preceding the great financial crisis, where they kept on raising and raising and raising.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it wasn't like they raised it to 4% and the economy tanked. It was like they raised it to
and then they raised it, and then they raised it.
At some point, it got to the point where, it caused a lot of frenzy. It did what it was intended to do, which was to pop the bubble. But then, I think nobody understood how big a bubble it was and how bad probably it would be. So I think the Fed is going to tread a little more cautiously this time. But you're not going to see, just for the same reason that you're not going to see interest rates over 5 next year. You won't then see an interest rate caused recession then leading to lower interest rates again. Like that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. There's a talk of the first-time homebuyer tax credit. Again, I'm sure it will be framed in a way so that everybody doesn't get it, which is fine because we don't want to start another bubble. Do you think a first-time homebuyer tax credit is coming? Because you could say no and then into the question. But if you say yes, do you think the maximum will be 15 grand, or do you think they'll go full 25 as they've talked about? So what do you think, first-time homebuyer tax credit or down payment assistance?
Yeah, I mean, I could see this definitely happening, because it is this is like becoming more of a problem of an issue. I don't want to say a problem, but it's becoming more of an issue, the lack of affordability of houses, right? The government doesn't really have, the federal government, I think, in this area is kind of powerless, because the real issue, as we've talked about before, is zoning, and that's why
level,
to the state level and even the municipal level, and the federal government has no power to force the states and municipalities to change their zoning. It can try to bribe them to do it,
right,
but force them to do it. So the only thing it really has to play with is the tax code. So I think that there's a lot of pressure for them to do something. So this is politically popular, so it'll happen. As for how much, what the credit is, I say probably whatever the number that they've thrown out there is probably the number that we'll wind up with.
Okay.
So, this is a hard one to sort of, there's a lot of other things to fight over that, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it'll be put on 25,000. So yeah, I could see it going to 25.
Yeah, I can as well. And again, not everybody will get 25. It'll be the max. But yeah, that's where I see it as well. And again, what I've done a lot of math on is the mortgage payment is actually rather affordable compared to the last 50 years. It's the down payment that now is becoming a problem. So I definitely could see them stepping in to assist or match or whatever it is for first-time home buyers. So I think this is definitely coming. Higher taxes. This is specifically around capital gains. There's talk about raising capital gains to ordinary income. Do you think it's going to happen? Yes or no? If you say yes, do you think they'll meet in the middle and just take it to 30%, or do you think they take it all the way to ordinary income?
I say it will not go all the way to ordinary income.
Okay.
I think that's an opening bargaining position to get it up to probably somewhere closer to 30. So
somewhere in the middle.
It's going up though, for sure. I would say.
Yeah, the whole budget reconciliation kind of makes it, right? Because the budget reconciliation, any spending you want, you have to actually have the money to pay for it, right? It's supposed to be a zero-sum game.
It's pay-go, right? So you have to balance
pay-go. Yep. Rent increases. We've seen, and this is specifically around single-family homes, but rent increases in multifamily are just as nuts. Just, I guess, a slight titch lower. But rent increases. Do you see them continuing? No is acceptable. Yes, but under 10%, or do you think they continue another year of over 10%?
I mean, they're not going to continue over 10% again.
Okay.
Because today it was announced that multifamily, was at a 10%, the historic level of rent increase.
Yes, right? I saw that.
There's a couple of things feeding into that. One is it's off like essentially not being able to, basically got 2 years of rent increases in 1 year this year, right? Because it didn't
Correct.
increase rent last year.
Mhm.
And the economy's come back at the same time, and the supply didn't increase. So basically you have a lot more demand, but a lot of that is going to is playing itself out right now, right? Because there's all that pent up demand from the last 18 months. It's all coming out now.
Mhm.
So that's why you've got this huge, rent bump. I could see continued strong rent growth next year,
Mhm.
but not 10%. I mean, look, maybe you're going to have a market here or there where you have it,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be like national like it is now. But
Agreed.
I've been looking at CoStar reports on properties, and they're predicting strong rent growth for the next couple of years.
Just so people know, what is historic rent growth? What would a syndicator such as yourself plan for, like 3%, or what would you?
That's the standard underwriting rule of thumb is 3%.
Okay.
Given that like long-term inflation has been 3%, so you're not going to underwrite more than long-term inflation.
Okay.
But in this market, and I've been talking with some syndicators who are saying, well, look, I feel like I can plausibly underwrite more rent growth in at least like years 1 and 2.
Okay.
Because of what's going on, but I'm not going to underwrite, 4% or 5% rent growth for my whole 10-year hold.
Yeah.
Maybe for the first 2 years I'll do it, and then I'll go back to 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Thank you for that. Inflation. Again, we'll use PCE as because it's the Fed's favorite. They've always talked about over 2. Last reading was 4.2, actually 2 months in a row. Do you see PCE inflation staying above 2? Again, you could say no. You could say yes, but under 3, or yes, we are still over 3 after 12 months.
Yeah, I will take B. And
Okay.
I will take B is because I think, so right now, we've had a lot of supply chain disruptions, and also there's all this pent up demand.
Mhm.
Those things are combining, but just as predicted, we've seen stuff like the price of lumber
Mhm.
plummet in the last, and sort of as these supply chain issues have become worked out. And there's still a lot of glitches in the system, but things are getting better than they were.
Mhm.
So, and really, if you look at the history of the last, decade,
Mhm.
the issue has never been inflation. The issue has been trying to stave off deflation. Why interest rates have been so low for such a long time, creating all the, the difficulties for investors, or happiness for investors, depending on the way you look at it.
Mhm.
But I think long term, deflation is still the issue.
Okay.
And so, we're having a spike right now, but I don't see this lasting. But I could see it over 2% next year still.
Okay. All right. So coming down, but yet not quite to trend.
Yeah.
Okay. That's reasonable. Just because everybody asks about stocks, and this is always funny to me, because just like you don't look at residential a lot, I don't look at the stock market, but I threw it in because everybody asks. As of the recording of the building of this slide, this S&P was 4505. I have no idea what it is today. Do you think the market's up or down next year? And then do you think there's a crash of 25% or a spike of 25% somewhere in the next 12 months? Just curious.
God, I have no idea.
Me neither.
I don't know. I mean,
yeah, what I always say is I have no idea. I don't have any money, so I hope it goes up. I hope all of you win. It doesn't matter to me.
I don't know.
Okay.
On this.
Fair enough. Last one, again, median home price. This is residential. This is national. As of the recording, it was 369. Do you think we're, anything under 369 we'll call a crash? Do you think we've kind of plateaued? Would be somewhere between 369 and 400? Or do you think we just keep going up and we're over 400?
I think we're going to be B. I keep on choosing B. Not because of you're anchoring to B or something, but I think we're going to have kind of continued upward drift, but I don't think it's going to be at the same level as we have now for a lot of the same reasons. Like with COVID kind of passing, you had this huge kind of lump of people demographically who were ready to buy their first home, and as we've talked about before, that whole millennial generation that supposedly never wanted to own a home because that would require them to move more than a block away from someplace that they could get avocado toast. That whole trope about millennials not wanting to own homes, it was always BS from the get-go. And sure enough, they had started to buy homes in a couple of years before COVID hit. And then COVID hit and a whole bunch of them went, oh my God, I got to get a home right this minute.
Mhm.
Right? And so people who would have kind of drifted into home ownership over the next 3, 4, 5 years, all piled in all at once. And now what you're seeing is a lot of them are now priced out because of the huge
Yeah, the jump.
prices. So they've kind of pulled back. And the other thing is, I don't know if you're seeing this in San Francisco,
Mhm.
but in New York, huge rent growth because people are coming back into the
Yep.
city. And, now that people are vaccinated, generally life is returning to normal. People want to be back here if they can. So this trend has, I think we will continue to see some of it, but I'm looking at, upstate market right now for rental houses, and it's very different from last year when we bought our house, when like you could not find anything.
Mhm.
Now what you're seeing is a lot of the sellers jumped the gun, they asked too much money, and now the houses are sitting on the market, right? So
Yeah.
because the combination of two negative things for them is, one is they got greedy and overpriced the listings, and the second thing is that the demand is not what it was last summer because people aren't panicking about COVID anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. This is really this is where I ended on that slide deck as well, is we're in a housing slowdown, not a crash. We're going to go from 100 miles an hour to 25. We are seeing increasing inventory, but not skyrocketing. I think rates stay relatively close to where they are today, right around 3%. Yeah. So and I do think rent growth continues, but it can't have a 10% on a 10% year, even in single family. That's just not okay.
Yeah, I mean, not nationally anyway, right?
Not
Like
nationally.
there may be markets that have another extraordinary year. More likely, if you see 10% rent growth in a market between now and this time next year, it'll be in a market that didn't have it this year.
Correct. Yeah.
So, but
I agree.
the market that has 2 years of 10%, rent growth in a row, I mean, that's like, God bless you if you own property there, but
Yeah.
that's extremely unlikely to happen.
Yeah. Very cool, Jonathan. Well, do me a favor. How can people follow you, be part of your world?
Yeah. So the easiest and simplest way is to join my Facebook group, which is free. It's called the Multifamily Investment Community, and we've got about 11,500 members or so at this point. And I've actually just taken the step of hiring some folks to help me run it.
Nice.
Which will, mean more content, more good stuff, more things happening in the group.
That's
And
awesome.
so just go ahead and join it. And when you join it, my one favor I ask you is that I've got a couple questions you have to answer. Basically, I ask you to promise you're not going to spam the group. Unfortunately, Facebook doesn't show these questions when you come on a phone. So the first time you join the group, please join on your computer, and then you can always use your phone after that. And if you know about, me from here, say hi, say, hey, I know you from Mike Zuber's show.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that. So
yeah, I'd love to see that as well. Let's make sure we blow up the Facebook group as well. Let them know you came from one rental at a time. Thanks, buddy.